All right, Joey, it's time.
We're doing it.
We're doing 20X the X.
Yes. Wait, have we done this before?
I don't know. I'm feeling like we have. I don't know.
Whatever.
Ah, well. Welcome to another episode of Extreme. My name is Zach.
My name is Joey.
And this is a podcast where we dig deep on your favorite video games.
That's right, Zach.
So let's talk a little bit about 20XDX.
Yes, which apparently that's how it's pronounced.
I just learned that maybe about 5 minutes ago.
Unless it's not, and like the website I saw it on was lying.
Oh my god, this would be such a great troll moment where we're getting fucked over hard. Just be like, yeah, just let them feel like that's how it's pronounced.
Even if it's not that, it's going to become a thing now.
Exactly. It's like saying, like, yeah, it's potato. And it's like, no, I'm not from, like, Northeast Boston, all right? Like, that's not how this works. It's
no, that's
called
actually
potato.
That's the original.
Get out of my house. Get out of my house. Wait, you're not in my house. Never mind. This is a figurative get out. Anyway, get in here and talk to me about 20XDX.
That's right.
Okay,
this game is awesome.
This game is super cool. Let's give a little backstory on it, though.
All
not
right.
internet backstory. We're not, that's too early. We're recording for about a minute and a half. That's too fast.
Okay, no, sorry.
Released in August 16th, 2017 initially. Published by Battery Staple Games, which I believe in a Reddit thread interview is related to a XKCD joke. You know, the webcomic? XKCD? Yeah.
Okay.
They do like science jokes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like stick figure drawings. Check them out. They're funny.
Okay,
They've been doing this shit for like a ton of years.
Yeah.
Headed by Chris King. The art's direction by Zach Ertz. I'm so sorry, Zach. Composed by, and the music was composed by Brandon Ellis. A lot more people did work on this game, but we'll talk about them later. These are the people who came up first on the Wikipedia page.
All right. Perfectly good order to do it in.
Way to bias my perception, Wikipedia. But let's talk a little bit about this, because I'm actually not playing it in the original when it came out on Steam, on PC. I'm playing it actually on the Switch right now. So there's some minor... Yeah, I mean, it feels like this is very at home on a console like Switch.
Yeah.
These kind of games, because this is a roguelike Megaman X action platforming game. And that kind of game is definitely meant for short bursts of play, like when you're in transit, when you have maybe about 5 minutes to spare. It's perfect. Because the levels, each level is maybe about 5 minutes long.
Yeah, they're pretty short.
Yeah, even if you're like taking your time, the level doesn't stretch on for that long.
Yeah.
So having it on the Nintendo Switch seems like a perfect fit. So I picked it up, and I've been really just playing around with it. And this is kind of going to be a bit of a different way that we're going to review, because normally there's a set path from beginning to end here.
Right.
But with a roguelike, you're expected to die a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, well, I don't expect you to get through it on the first go. Let's just put it that way.
Which is a good thing.
If you can, which is a good thing, because that adds to the replayability.
Yeah.
But that also adds to the value proposition, I guess you could say, about why this game is so good in the first place.
Right.
So enough gushing about it. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Should we
start from the
jump
beginning?
right into the... Well, before we even do that, there's a quick intro cutscene.
Yeah.
But for me, I think there was a bit of an issue the port to the Switch for me. Because I looked this up online. The intro takes about, I don't know, 40 seconds or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where they like go through and there's like rampaging robots, and the scientists are like, don't worry about it, we got this under control, and then they contract you out to come and take care of shit. That took about 40 seconds normally. Something about the Switch port got really messed up. Because do you know how long it took to run through that on the Switch?
How long?
It took 10 seconds.
Oh.
It was like so compressed. And it's not like these were like high fidelity visuals. It's like the same art style that you see throughout the game. It's not. It's like fading in, fading out pictures kind of thing. Or like some like little motion that's on the page, but nothing too intensive. But for some reason, the video compressed so much that it was skipping to the point where every 4 seconds was a second.
Okay.
In this video.
That's weird.
I was really confused because I saw the like video go by and I'm like, this can't be right. So I took it upon myself to look it up, and something must have gone wrong with the porting. Note to Chris King, maybe look at that in an update.
Yeah, I guess they're still updating it.
I mean, it was just ported, so there's bound to be a few issues. I assume there's going to be a patch coming out for that. Yeah. And because everybody's so butthurt about the visuals for the actual icon itself, which I think is fine. People are just in a tizzy because it has giant anime eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. People are gonna find a million reasons to complain about.
There's always gonna be people complaining.
So I wouldn't worry about it. But I guess we jump right into a run as you get started.
Classic Mega Man kind of thing.
Classic Mega Man. You turn it on and then boom, you're in it. You're in the first run, maybe. I don't know.
Like intro stage tutorial.
Initially I thought it was the first run because I was like, all right, here's the Mega Man. We're jumping into the game and it's just gonna be the game. Eventually I did learn that it is not, and that was just merely the tutorial.
Yeah.
But as you move through,
to throw you into the tutorial.
Exactly, literally throws you into the tutorial. Put you on a conveyor belt that drops you into the stage.
Yeah.
So interesting way to literally be thrown into the action. But basically, it's so obviously a tutorial area because the walls are lined up with button inputs that show you even like visualizations of your character doing the action.
Yeah.
Which is weird and meta all at the same time because it's like you in a box doing the action continuously while you yourself watch yourself do it.
Right.
So already we're like metaphysically confused here. It's like, so we are just like off of an assembly line, I guess. Like the models of the robot that were here.
Yeah.
So it already we're getting with the existential crisis in a roguelike Mega Man X platformer because that's what I like in my platforming games. Dreading the existential crisis that we are one of many.
Classic.
Classic Mega Man.
We're gonna have like the main character looking off in the distance at the end of the game.
I mean, that wouldn't be too far off from what Mega Man X was.
Yeah, they had that. Was it like Mega Man X 2? Or
every Mega Man X had that.
Yeah.
So if anything, maybe this is just a deep, deep homage to that.
It totally is.
So as we move through, though, the design, like the artifacts are very interesting. It's a very like hand drawn style, from what I can see in certain parts. Or it's how can I describe this? Honestly, I feel like they might be able to describe it better, but it seems like a combination between computer generated and partial hand drawn art aesthetics.
Okay. Yeah.
Because a lot of it does kind of seem like it came from some sort of game maker program. I don't know. I'm not 100% on that. But it does seem like there was polish put into a lot of the enemies and a lot of the bosses and obviously the main characters. But the design, like the environment itself, like the lava that's in the first area here, they went ham on these like heat effects that
Yeah.
show from the lava. Like, you go down close to the lava and your character starts getting blurry because you're so close to the fucking heat.
Yeah, it's really detailed.
It's a
awesome.
good little detail, honestly.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that. Kudos to the art team there. And then I guess as you move through, you're introduced to your first power-up, which is the boomerang blade. Which I believe is always the same in this tutorial area. You always get the boomerang blade.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's...
the tutorial is probably the same for everyone.
I watched a few different videos of people going through it, and it always seemed to be the boomerang blade. So specifically, they wanted to pick this one. Now, I can't say why exactly they specifically chose this one, but I do have a theory.
Okay.
Which is going to come right after this break. So what I was saying, I think it's an homage to Mega Man 2.
Mega Man 2. Or Mega Man also.
Yes, not even Mega Man X.
Mega Man X.
Not Mega Man
X.
Not Mega Man X. And not Mega Man also. I mean, Mega Man the number.
Okay.
Because it's similar to one of the most, from what I understand, the most appreciated upgrades in a Mega Man game, which is the Metal Blade.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is a rotating metal blade, first off, on the boomerang blade. And it can be shot in all 8 directions, just like the metal blade can.
Right.
The only difference is that the boomerang blade comes back, whereas the metal blade just kind of keeps going.
Right.
But it's pretty much a similar homage to that weapon itself.
I like that theory.
Yeah, and in that sense, it also helps you understand how to implement these power-ups, because once you get that, they give you a barrage of these bat-like enemies that come at you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey, weapon plus tons of bats equals a solution to your problems for right now. So they're just begging you to use it with the bats, and then you realize, oh wait, this thing plows through enemies like there's no tomorrow. Fantastic. So you can see the use case for actually using these weapons in stages alongside using them specifically for bosses.
Yeah, it's almost like conveyance.
Oh my god, it's my favorite C word!
My second
Put in the
favorite.
conveyance bell, Paul! Yeah! Woo! That was a noise.
It was something. It was not
That was something.
nothing. Right?
Well,
Paul?
I don't... I'm sure it was definitely something.
It was probably definitely something.
But I think, yeah, because I think they did that. Again, I'm putting words into the developer's mouth, but in Mega Man X games, you're kind of conditioned to not use your special weapons until you get to the boss area.
Right.
When you can kind of just wail on the boss with the special weapon and use up all the ammo there.
Yeah.
But in this game, it's kind of more understanding that you use the special weapon outside just to survive, because you don't have the luxury of, if you die, you can just keep going.
Right.
This one's like, you need to use your full arsenal Otherwise, you're gonna die and just lose everything anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it wants to explain, like, look, you can't be afraid of just using these special weapons. I know you have a limited power gauge here, but you gotta be okay with using it. You're gonna get some of that energy back throughout just playing the game, but I would suggest if the situation is right, you use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So I think it's a good little area to kind of explain that and also disassociate itself from what you've been taught from previous games in the Mega Man X series.
Right, like Mega Man X, you don't need any of the power-ups, basically, unless you're facing the boss.
Yeah.
Oh, it's rare.
I mean, a lot of the games like that, you can actually just play through the game without power-ups at all.
Yeah.
I mean, this game probably too, but
Right.
I mean, now we're getting into some of the meta shit.
Yeah.
Let's keep going though. There's absolutely no dying allowed in this tutorial stage, by the way. I just tried for the heck of it, jumping in the lava about 7 times, and nothing happened.
Oh yeah, because there's no health or anything.
There's no health, so you just die and it's like, flip, you're back. By the way, the dying in here is very quick. There's no dying per se, as like you just lose a bar of health and it immediately plops you back onto the last platform that you were at.
Right.
So it's very convenient because it doesn't take you out of the action.
Yeah.
And it keeps the flow moving forward.
Well, a lot of games seem to be doing this nowadays.
Especially for this kind of game where it's like heavy on the action.
Yeah.
And like really wants you to move forward. If it bogged you down by like you've died or like you've taken damage, now you wait to respawn no, that would have bogged this down so much.
That was 10 years ago.
Exactly. Like I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
It's also like the change in market. Like a lot of people may be playing this again in transit or wherever. They don't have time to wait for that shit. They just want to keep going.
Yeah.
And even people like me who don't have a ton of time on their hands, just like I gotta keep going. I don't have time to wait for this shit.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea. And as we move forward, you end up fighting your first boss, Al, the friendly robot. Huh. Alrighty. It's not too intense of a fight. Just has basic laser shots and also does a wall of lasers eventually. But that's about it. Doesn't really have anything special. Again, it's a tutorial boss to kind of get you acclimatized to how the game is going to be when you're actually in it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think we talk about actually being in the game now, because once you finish this, you go straight to the hub world.
That's right. Good intro stage.
Yeah, it's a very good intro stage, and it leads you right into the hub world where you see all of the different actual options that are available to you upon starting a new run.
Right.
So, like, a lot of different options available for you at the beginning of each run. There's items that you can unlock. There's like both permanent upgrades and semi-permanent upgrades.
Right.
Like there are some that you can just buy for one run, some that you can invest in for like to have always.
Yeah.
At the top of the hub area, there's also 6 different challenge types that you can kind of just go into whenever you feel like it. 4 of which change either daily or weekly.
Yeah, that's cool.
So there's a lot of new content that's going to be consistently there, even after you've beaten the game however many times.
Yeah.
You can even also immediately off the bat play as the person you were playing as before, which is Nina, or you can play as this other person named Ace, who you saw in the beginning. In Mega Man X terms, Nina is Mega Man X, and Ace is Zero.
Yeah.
Like that's just who they are. One has a gun, and the other has a sword.
And one is blue, and one is red.
Exactly. So you're already kind of acclimatized to how these people are going to play. But I think it's time to jump into our actual first run.
Do it.
All right, first run for real. So I jumped into level 1, and for me, it was Rollster Beta.
All right.
Rollster. So let's talk a little bit about not particularly the stage itself, but I wanted to talk about chunking. I'm not talking about like puking I'm talking about like how the stage is built.
Okay.
And I think actually Chris King himself can actually explain it a bit better in this quote here that we have from video clips. Not video clip, it's an interview clip. Paul, cut that part out where I said it was video and just play the clip.
And the levels are procedurally generated, which is interesting to me. Like, how do you balance that with, in my eyes, the Mega Man games are always pretty heavily about level design. Like, that was an important part of them.
Yeah, so this game differs a lot from the traditional Mega Man games because of the roguelike nature. So it's much more akin to something like Rogue Legacy or Crypt of the Necrodancer, where we have kind of chunks that we stitch together that are designed, and then we stitch together how they work, and you have to go and explore the level, kind of find what's out there, so it feels like a different game. It's not exactly the same as your traditional, well, I always know the pattern of every single enemy and where they're going to be, but it adds to replayability so much.
So it's an interesting design tact here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of based on how most roguelikes work, in a sense, but to see it kind of functioning that way in an action platformer is a very cool idea.
Right. Fresh.
Very fresh. But the chunks that I happen to run into are heavily focused on very precarious platforming across pretty daunting gaps.
Yeah. It's like all platforms.
Exactly, which is an interesting change away from like original Mega Man X.
Yeah.
Because I mean they did have those moments where you jump across very precarious platforms, but it was kind of punctuated within the stage.
It's not everywhere.
Like it's not everywhere. A lot of the times they would just have straightaways where it's just kind of like not too much there. I mean,
or enemies, I guess, instead of
or like a lot of enemies instead of platforming.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they just kind of really throw platforming at the wall here, and then throw some enemies in to the mix alongside it. But that's not really a problem here because the controls are just exceptionally fluid.
Oh yeah.
Like the dashing feels great. The jumping is on point. There's little to no lag, honestly, when you're jumping up walls.
Right.
You basically stick to the wall as opposed to like jumping outward, which is good.
Yeah.
And the jumping feels very responsive, so it doesn't really impact it so much. I guess what you'd really need to be good at is jump dashing, which is a key skill for any Mega Man X player.
It's also like the best, like the most fun thing to do, I find.
Oh yeah, mastering a jump dash and being able to consistently do it makes the game infinitely more fun.
Yeah.
But I think we need to take a quick musical break, if that's okay. What do you think?
Do it.
Do you agree? Paul, do you agree?
All right.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the controls themselves.
Cool.
So they can be modified to a point, but not exceptionally. Like personally, I would have loved to have had the dashing on the very large ZR button as opposed to just the regular R button. 'Cause on a Switch controller, if you take a look at it, the R button is pretty thin and small, as opposed to the ZR button, which is fat and has a lot more give.
Yeah,
And I have very fat fingers, so sometimes it's just not. My finger just doesn't feel right there. I like having that little gap that I could kind of slip my finger into and just keep it there.
Right.
But that's just a personal preference. But I
Especially
mean,
for
you can
dash.
exactly. But I mean, they do offer the option to like double tap to dash. So
Yeah,
they
but,
do
like,
offer some
who
changes
does
there.
that?
I don't know. I never double tap. I mean, I like having it on a button. You could actually move dashing to a face button if you wanted,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I've always wanted it on. I think having it on a shoulder button is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's just the most natural thing.
Exactly. But as you move through the stage, you're gonna notice there's a ton of pickups, which they call Augs,
Uggs.
which are dropped from chests of various different shades and sizes. In the beginnings, you're mostly going to get wooden and steel chests. But as you move through and kind of defeat more or find secret areas, which are kind of scattered throughout each stage, there's actually not too many secret areas, but you'll get these Augs that will help upgrade
They will
you for the...
auxiliary-
We want to try that sentence again?
They will augment.
There you
you.
go. They'll auxiliary your abilities. Yeah, words are hard. It's not like this is the 79th episode of our podcast or whatever. But yeah, it'll help kind of in this specific run augment your abilities to either make your attacks more powerful, make you faster, what have you. But as you move through, these are kind of absolutely necessary as you go through the game, because as things ramp up and get more intense, you're going to be very happy that you have these minor like abilities. And some of the augments they stack actually, which is cool.
Yeah.
Like-
They're kind of like power ups.
Exactly, but like you can get like multiples of these power ups that stack on top of each other. Like they have the basic attack one that gives you +2 to your attack, but you can get like 3 of those, and then that's like +6 to your attack.
Yeah.
So it's cool that it's not like you get one and it's like, oh, you already have this. Do you want to get it? No, it's just like, who cares? Just keep stacking.
Yeah.
Which makes
and,
it great.
You're gonna need it.
Exactly, you are going to need it because there's going to be a lot more enemies that take more hits to take down. So you're going to need that extra firepower, or you're going to need that maybe boost of speed to get through a platforming section.
Right.
So as you go through, though, specific parts of chunks are designed with, honestly, limitations in mind. Specifically for me, I noticed that some of the areas have, like, fire geysers that don't allow you to climb up certain walls. But it's not like they have the fire geyser up the entire wall. It's very specifically at the edge of a wall, so that you can't actually latch on to the wall and climb it.
Right.
So they're very precisely
hazard.
placed
Yeah.
to stop you from going to a certain spot, unless you have an upgrade.
Right.
This is very interesting, because they could have just kind of made it so that the entire wall would have been fire, but I guess to kind of save on space in the actual procedural generation, it was only really necessary to put it at one spot because that gets the point across. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of says like, hey, you really don't need to go up here. There's nothing here for you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But
But then why have the wall there?
well, I mean, it's an indoor area, so sometimes they gotta block it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you move through, you'll honestly also know you'll find out as you go through. There's extra hard areas that lead to extra loot, which are the augments. But we already kind of talked about that. But now you're in the boss room. Well, wait a minute. Actually, no, you're not. You can actually, before the boss, stop and exchange money, which is bolts, I guess, for health.
No, not the token thing, or.
Well, we'll talk about maybe tokens a bit later.
Okay.
But you can exchange money for health beforehand. It's a good idea for trade-off because these bolts, or sockets or whatever, are only available to you in the run, so you may as well just use them. But in this area, it's actually you can just get 1 health for 1 socket or 1 bolt, so it's actually a pretty good deal.
Why not?
Because I mean, it's also the first area. They want to make sure that you have fun. So it's like if you're hurting, then just kind of take it easy. But then you actually get to the first boss, which was Rolster.
Yay!
It throws boomerang blades, which was interesting because it was the first one that I ran into in the tutorial. So I already kind of knew how it would work. I don't know if that was intentional or just kind of coincidental because of how the game created itself, but it kind of seemed to line up for me personally.
Maybe it was a little foreshadowing.
Perhaps, but the boss is not too intense. He'll shoot out the boomerang blades, but then as it goes forward, will eventually just throw itself around the room as its own boomerang and kind of bound around with a very large hitbox, mind you, so you need to be very careful.
It's pretty big for the room.
It is. The room is not too big, but the Rolster is actually quite large. It takes about maybe 1/6 of the room. I'm just guesstimating. But as you beat him, you actually get a boss chest, which actually has health and bolts and an actual augment in there. Like, congratulations. But the ending of each of the stage here, you can grab loot from any chest, but there's 3 options available to you here at the end. You can grab the boss's power, which in this case was the boomerang blade. You can get extra bolts, or nuts, I guess. Nuts, let's call them nuts. Or you can get 1 random augment. So you can only get 1 of them, though. So you have to choose wisely. Do you want the boss's power? Do you need the boss's power? Or do you want to kind of sacrifice that to get an augment that's permanent throughout the entire thing? Will it augment your abilities? Or do you need the cash?
Yeah. So many tough choices.
But it's an interesting trade-off here. And honestly, on top of that, if you beat the level fast enough, you actually get another bonus, which is a speed bonus, which, if you had noticed, there was a timer in the bottom left. And if you manage to beat the entire stage, including the boss, in that time limit, you get another bonus chest, which has another augment in there.
Yeah.
And also there's like the 2 scientists that kind of comment on your progress, and initially are just kind of surprised that you succeeded. By the way,
it's like, whoa.
These guys have got to be like the end bosses, right? They just seem too weirdly menacing.
That is.
They just it's like they're not like Dr. Light where they actually care about you. It feels like legitimately like they are science. They don't even seem evil. They just seem like scientists where they're just like observing you, and it's like, oh, like, let me write that down in my notebook. Like, something's gonna go wrong here. They're gonna be the end bosses for sure, something like that. I just feel it in my bones.
That would be great.
And
Humans.
then oh man, that would be cool. And then it's interesting because then you can decide from this point who you want to tackle next. You have 1 of 3 choices, which is randomized each time, but you can still choose how you want to proceed.
Yeah.
And then, actually, before we move on, one of the rewards you can actually get for beating the boss is called a nutsack, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Wait, is it nutsack or nutstack?
No, I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know. Maybe it was nutstack. Maybe I just missed the T.
Whatever it is, everyone just sees nutsack.
I just looked at it immediately, and I'm like, "You did it! You did it, guys! You did it! You get the golden award for jokery." But I want to take a quick break before we move into level 2. right, we're here in level 2.
All right.
Gonna fight Perforator.
Let's do this.
All right, but we got to be a little careful because we're not doing so hot on health.
Okay.
So there's some very precarious platforming here, and I don't
what?
really see a bottom to the hole here.
Slowly. All right.
Okay, are you ready? Line yourself up,
Got it.
and you got to hit the dash button here. Are you ready?
Yeah. I'm with you.
All right, we're gonna go. 1, 2, 3, and jump! Oh, jump! Jump! We missed the jump!
From the Department of Blame. I think we forgot to give this one a brain. Sad.